Good evening, everybody. This is Roger Derling, Executive Director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and I am very honored to be joined by the producers of Nomadland, Mollye Asher, Dan Janvey, and Peter Spears. Last night, they swept the BAFTA awards. The film has won the Golden Globe for Best Picture this past Saturday. The director, Chloe Chow, won the Directors Guild Award for her directing of Nomadland. Welcome. Congratulations to the three of you. And actually, my first question to the three of you, this film has captured the zeitgeist and is celebrated. Everybody's talking about this film. How do you guys feel about the success and the fact that it has created so much conversation? Mollye.
Well, I mean, it's really gratifying. You know, you make a film, and the whole idea of everything behind a film, I think, is you want to touch people, you want to move people, you want to communicate with people, and especially during this time when we're all so separated from each other, it makes it all the more gratifying that we've made a film that's resonated so deeply with audiences.
Dan, I find it really interesting. I talked to a lot of friends of mine that are passionate about the film, and then some people feel that the film is very uplifting, that the journey of Fern is very empowering. And then other people, like my husband last night, we were watching the film again, and he felt so saddened. It's still incredibly admiring of the work, but he felt so saddened about it. How do you feel
Roger,
about?
Is it bad that I think that that's a holy grail of a movie? I love that reaction with movies in general. I'm not saying not that they're that it's divided. Of any good film is that everyone will have their own experience with it. And in fact, that there's something about Fern's journey that is a little bit of a prism for people to see their own soul and their own journey through. I think that's true of all great cinema. I imagine that's true of a lot of other films this year. But with Fern in particular, she's this vessel for people to tap into whatever they're going through in their own lives. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. I love that feedback that you and your husband had completely polar opposite responses. I think the movie is both things, and that's a really powerful thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, people love it, but they have different interpretations about Fern's journey. You know, Peter, you and Francis commission, got the rights for the book Nomadland, and by Jessica Bruder. You know, can you tell us what was it about the book that compelled you, that spoke to you, that felt that you guys needed to make a movie out of it?
Well, when we read it, it felt, despite being something of a journalistic period piece about something that had transpired in 2008, and the story takes place in 2011, and we follow very real people through this journey, in particular Linda May in the book, and it ended with her buying a little bit of land somewhere in the I think it's Arizona where she bought a bit of land. Now she has some land in New Mexico, but at the end of the book, then she did. So it certainly was a story unto itself that seemed to have taken place some time ago. But for Francis and I think there still felt like there was something in it that was a bit of a clarion call, that sort of thing that Bob Wells talks about the Titanic's going down and we have to get the lifeboats out, that there was something prescient about this warning, that even though several years ago it felt like this was happening for a very small group of people, we now have kind of in mass, as a whole country, as the whole world is sort of tapped into this sense of loss and grief and isolation and all of that due to the pandemic. And certainly this sense of precarity of the way our lives are all interwound and how delicate it all is has proven to be something that I don't think Francis and I could have seen at all in the specifics of how it came to pass, but it was something that we sensed and felt was resonated for us even 3 years ago when we optioned the material, and only became more so in the ensuing months and years since we first optioned it.
But Peter, when you optioned the film, you guys envisioned it as a fiction film all along?
We did, yeah. We thought that Francis would play, Linda May, and we sort of follow Linda May's sort of life story in a very traditional kind of adaptation of the book. And then rather at this point, well known that Francis now was at the Toronto Film Festival, and she saw the writer, the movie she'd made with Mollye and Josh, and really loved Chloe's work, and called me immediately afterwards and said, I think I found the director for our movie. And I saw the work and was blown away. And then we met with Chloe, and Chloe said, yes, perhaps it's a traditional adaptation of the book, this idea that I have in my head, but it might be something yet closer to the way I've been working in the past. And so she began the journey then. The very next day after we all met and decided to make the movie, she was in a car driving to the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous that year and meeting all the people in the book and starting to do the research for the film. And within that year, we were shooting the movie.
Mollye, I find, I'm a big fan of Chloe's movies, and you've worked with her. I find it interesting that in Songs My Brother Taught Me, that she didn't have a screenplay, that it was a treatment, and then she started writing as she went along. Correct me if I'm wrong, but with the writer and with Nomadland, she did have a screenplay, but then she was also. Can you explain the process?
Sure. I mean, with Songs My Brothers Taught Me, she originally had a full-on script that she had like 30 drafts of, but we last minute lost the funding, and so only could make the film with the amount of money that we had. And so the idea was that she said, I'm just going to throw away the script, and we're going to still tell the same narrative, but let the land and the people guide us. And so that's then evolved, because that was it's not necessarily a good idea to go into a project without a script. But every night or every morning she was writing scenes, and then the writer was the next step there, where it was like there was a script, but it was not as long as like a full-on script. And again, she was doing the same kind of thing of writing each night and adding to the script. And then with Nomadland, it was an actual script. So it was sort of a journey over the course of the 3 films of her discovering how to, I think, fully tell the narrative, but also allow for spontaneity and things to arise while we're shooting and discover.
And did you find this whole process? I mean, you're used to working with Chloe. Is that something from your vantage point that is exhilarating to watch a process like this, or you find it daunting to see this process?
I love it. It's exhilarating. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just like, I mean, I think all 3 of us as producers, like we love challenges, and it's just a different kind of challenge. It's really exciting.
Mollye, you love challenges more than I do. You love challenges more than any other producer I know. You're gleeful about
Cuckoo.
Dan, one of the things that is phenomenal about this production is that you were working in different communities, and it's, if I understand, every time that you arrive in a different community, you basically had to set up production. I mean, can you run us through the process?
Yeah, it was unique for me. I don't know about Peter or you, Mollye. I don't think any of us had made a road movie before. And that was a really thrilling proposition to try that. And also, what better story to do a road movie than Nomadland, because the production itself had a kind of nomadic existence, a lot like Fern, going from site to site. So I think we made a couple of key choices. Like, one, we said, okay, the production, we rented an RV, and that was our traveling production office. And we made a decision to have our accounting staff be in New York City and not come with us. So we tried to pare things down, and we tried to have as small of a crew as possible. And yeah, we would set up shop in each new location. So guys, I tried to remember the other day, and for the first time I forgot, that we shot over a period of 5 months for 50 days in South Dakota, Nebraska, Nevada, Arizona, and California. And
Yes, in that order. Yeah.
in that order, yeah.
7,000 miles.
7,000 miles of traveling, yeah. But Roger, the thing that I'd say is, there's a mental component to being on the road for that long, but it's not that different than an away job, because you just keep going in different places. And we'd have advance crew, like our location manager, Nathan, would like travel around America completely by himself in advance of the film crew arriving. And Molly, weren't there moments where Hannah Peterson also was like doing advance stuff? Or am I making that up?
Casting.
While we were doing our prep, she was doing some
casting,
casting.
yeah.
Yes, right.
So it was remarkable, Roger. Like we got to travel all over the Western United States. And
Wow.
you know, what a thrill and privilege.
How did you guys gain the trust of the different communities that you guys were filming in? Was that a difficult thing?
Well, each one's difficult. Like Peter and Molly. Like, if we just start with the Nomads, Linda May, Swanky, and Bob come from the book. So that's how that started. And then, like each community, like Molly, each community would kind of require its own process, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of a linchpin in each community. So, you know, with the Nomads, there was Jessica Bruder and the book. So that was our doorway into that. And then in Empire, Nevada, we met this woman, Brandy, she was the one that opened all the doors for us to not only the mine, but like other people who ended up being in the film. So every single location, you find that person who just has connections in some way to everybody. And I think, and through them, it begins that trust.
You know, Peter, going back to Francis, and you know, can you tell us for the process of having, and the idea of having Francis working with non-actors and that dynamic?
Well, it was always an experiment. I mean, from the very first moment that Chloe, Francis, and I spoke about this proposition of working with non-performers, you know, coming from her prior movies, you know, this was the new element. You know, now it's non-performers, and now what happens when we add in, you know, real trained actors and people that people know. So, you know, she began that process of really indoctrinating herself into the life of Francis, so that Fern was almost, Francis in many ways was no longer, to Chloe and to us in the movie, no longer she wasn't sort of a known person. She was becoming, and Chloe was doing this sort of documentary and research into her life. So, you know, Fern is Fran and Fran is Fern in so many ways. And I think it allowed her to find that middle ground of existence that was many steps toward the real person performer, and help them bridge. They weren't bridging as much of a gap to, oh my gosh, here's, you know, Frances McDormand playing this, you know, a big fictional character that they needed to come toward. So she built this bridge in a way by doing that research and drawing from her life. But also then you have someone like Frances, I mean, who's such an incredible performer and knows that the biggest part of acting, the most important part is listening. And no, I mean, just when you rewatch the movie, like, next time, just watch Frances listen. It's the most active masterclass in listening, and it's authentic. I mean, it's not a put on, or it's not something she's doing in like shots later. I mean, it's in the moment because she cares and is interested in these people that we were, I mean, literally living with. I mean, for many of them, shoulder to shoulder for months, who were become our family and became the whole company of Nomadland. So that was, and so then Chloe at the end of the shoot just, turned to us and said, well, I'll see when I get the edit together, but I think this experiment might have worked. And so, she'd been watching it all through, and watching back dailies and seeing it through the camera. And sure enough, as she put it together, we all saw it then once it was edited, and the great experiment did seem to have worked.
And Mollye, this idea that Peter alluded, that you guys were discovering the film as you went along, were there moments that you were aware that surprises? What were the most surprising things for you?
I mean, I think the Bob sharing the story about his son was something that was discovered, while she was talking to him during the shoot, and then that was something I think that was a light bulb for her.
That's towards the end of the movie where he talks about. Oh, okay, which is such a powerful scene, so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that I feel like when she's working, at least I remember this happening on The Rider. There's one moment where she's like, aha, okay, I found that little moment that's going to like connect it all. And I think she's always keeping an eye out for that. And so that's the one I think would probably be the most surprising.
Roger, the true secret weapon of Chloe is her editing. So more so than any director I've ever worked with, like Mollye, you saying the aha moment. I think every single shooting day, she's indexing what those anchors are that she's going to build her scenes, and constantly then adjusting to what's happening on the ground to change some shooting thing to keep building those scenes. And I was so amazed by her ability. It only really hit home for me how she was doing that when I saw the finished film. It's like, okay, she has been building this as an editor from day one.
Remember the little field notebook that she makes all her notes in, and you had no idea. It was like a algebra or calculus something, and she just would keep that everywhere. And throughout the shoot, she just was, I think, just notes for herself for editing and how she knew the movie was going to go together. And I just started to realize how important that little notebook was. So it became the thing I was focused, like make sure it didn't get left behind somewhere, but she knew, she always had it, and she was always taking those notes.
Tell one of I mean, there's so many. I'm such a big fan of this film. So many powerful sequences. The rubber tramp, rendezvous. Did you guys build it out, or did you use the actual one? And tell us about that sequence.
Yeah, that was all staged. We had a momentary idea of maybe shooting at the real one, but the real one now is like 10,000 people, and we were needed for it to be one of the first ones where it was just around 50 people, like ours was. So we actually staged it to be right before the real one, so that people were already going to be coming to the area, so they just come a little bit earlier to be in the movie RTR and then move on to the real one. But it took months of gathering the right people together, and actually where they're all placed. Josh and the art director created a map, and it was all very carefully placed. But then what's wonderful, and I think it's a great example of this scene of the way that the film really worked, is that this was fully planned. But then once everybody got there and started making their camp and setting up their rigs with their doormats and everything, then they began to actually live there. They didn't go somewhere else at night, they just stayed there. And so it really became an actual kind of RTR.
Dan, one of the aspects that I find so fascinating about the film is the sound landscape, and how the sound evolves as her journey continues. Can you tell us about? I'm a big fan of Sergio Diaz, the sound
Oh,
designer.
that's cool that you know him.
Yeah, he did Roma.
Yeah.
And can you tell us about
Yeah,
the sound design? And
yeah. We were very lucky, Roger, that we had three incredible, beautiful artists really leading the sound process. And it truly starts with our production sound mixer, Wolf. And Molly, Wolf made both films before or just The Rider?
Just the writer.
So Wolf was one of the special things about The Rider, which I really am in no position to talk about because we have the wonderful Mollye Asher here. But on The Rider, one of the things that was special about that production was how few people worked on it. And Molly, what you discovered there was really like this incredible trio of Chloe, Josh, and Wolf, the sound mixer. And Wolf was an incredibly vital part of the dance of how Chloe and Josh shot things. And Chloe would look to Wolf also he would hear the performances that worked. And not just that, but Wolf also had an incredible sense of picking up and being attuned to the landscape around him. And so you just had this person who loved what he did so much and loved the story and the characters and the world. And then his incredible work was seen through by Sergio and another sound mixer, Zach Severs, who I think really, really took Wolf's incredible capturings and brought it to life. And Chloe's obviously exacting with that stuff as everything.
Peter, Suanne Carlson, who she has the scene with the buckets, explaining us the usage of the buckets, and then Bob Wells, the two of them have a nonprofit, Homes on Wheels. Can you tell us the importance of them endorsing and participating in the film?
Well, I mean, just the fact that they, that work and the connection with that organization begins all the way back with Jessica Bruder, who wrote the book and was really the conduit for us to the nomads in this nomad experience. She lived with these people amongst them, for a couple of years before she wrote the article and then the book, Nomadland. So, it was with her stamp of approval that when we arrived, that I trusted that we were there in the same spirit that she had been there, to hear their stories and to, share, and to share their days, shoulder to shoulder, which is what we did. So in doing that, when you get to spend that kind of time with these people, they become part of your family, and you are, and it's not like it often is in a movie where you sort of drop in and drop out of people's lives and you just are going to come in and shoot and then you're gone. So to know that there's this organization that exists, and to know that they're, the Home on Wheels Alliance, which is there as a group that is there to provide resources for the nomads, was an incredibly gratifying thing for us to be involved with, both during the time of the movie and after the movie, to know, to still feel connected to those folks. And, anyone watching now too can check that out, that organization, and learn more about people, folks who are living this way, and the sorts of needs that they have, and any help that they may require, that can contribute to that organization. Or if you're living on the road this way and in this way, that it can create community and bring you, into the fold of, the folks who are now, nomads and living this sort of van life. So it's a really cool group, and we've been very honored to be a part of that.
And Molly, you have the nomads, and they're well documented. And then you introduce Derek, who is kind of like a subculture. He's a young traveler,
Mhm.
and he's so poignant in it. Can you tell us about meeting him and how that story came about of him joining the
Mhm.
production?
Yeah, well, Chloe had written in the script for there to be a group of younger travelers who are not really part of this specific nomad community. They have a different kind of, they don't necessarily live in vans. Like Derek is a train hopper, and so she wanted to bring that world of not that all the travelers are younger, but a younger group into the mix with the nomad community. And so Hannah, who Peterson, who was our local casting person, she was set out to go and find. Actually, was written as a young pregnant woman, and so
Oh,
she
wow.
went and found this community, a group of travelers, and she was taping them and talking to them, and she met Derek. And when Chloe saw this tape of Derek, she was like, what era is this person from? And like just instantly decided to change the character to be Derek and to write it for him. And it was great because he's such a magnetic person that then we also then just brought him on, kept him on actually as an art assistant. And he became part of our team even after he was done with his performance.
And given that fact that the part wasn't written with him in mind, the sonnet number 18, Shakespeare's, is so, I mean, that moment I do cry, Dan. I get very emotional
I love,
watching the film. I mean, was that always in the script, the
yeah,
sonnet? It
yeah,
was?
yeah. And also that sonnet goes into the montage of seeing the photographs and of the past, which just destroys me. Yeah, I think that montage also really taps into your own personal history of your own past and
Hmm.
where you've been, and I love that scene very much. Yeah.
And when did the choice of the music, Ludovico, I'm gonna butcher his name, Ianandi, which is a beautiful soundtrack. When did that choice come about?
That came about in post production when Chloe was experimenting. He had discovered Ludovico and really felt a kinship between his work and Nomadland that was incredibly inspiring.
Hmm. I had questions for Josh. What one of the things I love about his work is the fact that the relationship to the the characters evolving in nature, and you see it in all of the films that he's worked with Chloe and the writer in and you also saw it in his film God's Own Country. Can any of you talk about his approach with the landscape and the light and the characters?
Well, none of us can talk about it with the beauty and elegance that he can.
Yeah, it's really stunning just to watch how characters walk through, in particular, Frances, when she walks through landscapes, and it's just so lyrical to watch the character be evolved through the landscape.
Yeah, I
Where
think he's
yeah, go
talked
ahead.
about a little bit of he's talked a little bit about how like in the rider, the cowboy Brady is he's sort of static within this large landscape because he's stuck in a sense because he can until he can ride the horse. And then in this case, like we're traveling with Fern. We're a lot of times we're traveling behind her because we're getting into her perspective. And so I think that might be a little bit of what he might say, and of course not as obviously as articulate, but
And there are two iconic moments that where you guys, when how soon enough did you see them and understood how stunning they were, like the Frances walking with a lantern, and or her walking through that rubber tramp rendezvous, which is one single take, and you know, the sun is rising. Were you guys seeing rushes and understanding that you had something amazing in your hands visually?
Yeah, for sure. We were watching all the rushes and knew that, you know, they were really capturing a kind of, you know, lightning in the bottle sort of thing. I mean, the person who wasn't watching was Frances. She never watches. And I think it's an amazing feat to know that for 5 months she did this without ever really knowing. We all knew what was happening, but she just had to take it on faith that this was all something that, you know, was going to add up to a film that she, you know, loves so dearly now and is so close to her heart. But it was pretty remarkable and exciting for us day in and day out to see, you know, what had happened the day before, and the excitement to know what might happen the next day, especially because sometimes Chloe would just show up in the morning with new pages and be like, we're going to do something different today. And we're just like, wait, what do you mean you're going to do something different? And she's like, yeah, so we you know, that, remember that character we met yesterday, or that person, you know, I had a thought that perhaps Frances Fern's character now will, you know, go to meet this person and we'll be with them and let's see what happens. And so we would be scrambling to, you know, have to compress pre-production, which normally can take, you know, weeks and months, into 24, 48 hours to turn that around. And so,
And did Peter, did Frances have to constantly be adjusting her character to those changes?
I mean, she did, and yet all she needed to really do was be in the moment and just allow the character to experience what the character was like. I mean, she is an actor who traditionally likes to create a character, likes to rehearse, likes to, you know what is, you know, going to happen and sort of planned. And then in that planning is, you know, we'll find the, you know, the electricity of the moment and the truth of those moments, you know, as we all seen in all the incredible performances she's done, you know, from Fargo to, you know, and most recently, 3 Billboards and everything in between. So this was different for her. This required her to strip away all of the, you know, creating of a character and just make herself just be as present as Frances / Fern as she could be in the moment, and in whatever moment that was. So even when new pages were delivered, if it was something, I mean, once she got into the swing of it, she was just like, let's go, you know, let's it's another day, another beautiful sunset, and another chance to meet some incredibly cool new people. And she was living, and for a lot of this, I mean, you know, and living in the van a lot, and sometimes in the motel as well. But I mean, driving that van, everywhere that van went, Frances was driving that van for almost all those 7,000 miles, and, you know, and really connecting. And she's the one with Josh who helped to build out the van. And, you know, I mean, it was just not only just a road movie for Frances, but was really a road trip of a lifetime for her.
And were all 3 of you as well also traveling in vans?
Yeah, we purposely, all of the vehicles that the whole team was traveling in were vehicles that could look like they would be in the nomadic community. So all of our equipment trucks were not trucks, they were cargo vans. And then of course, like Dan said, we had the traveling production office, which was just an RV. So that at some point, if they're going to shoot 360, all of our vehicles would be fine being where they were.
And did you have a name for your van, Mollye?
I didn't. I didn't get so attached to my rental vehicle, but
yeah, you had to be careful. Frances, when she had to say goodbye to the van, it was very emotional having named it and everything. And she just bought a new van, and she's going to hit the road with Joel, she said. And we asked her if she had named it yet. She said no, she won't ever make that mistake again. She doesn't want to name it. It becomes too personal when you name it. So
well, and last night, you know, I was remiss earlier. I was mentioning all the accolades and awards, and last night she won the BAFTA for Best Actress for her performance in Fern. Dan, can you tell us about David Strathairn? He's I mean, for those listening, there's only 2 actors, seasoned actors.
There are a few more. Fran Sister is an incredible actor.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to, are there any other performers?
Tay,
David in the film, David's son is played by David's son. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if you knew that. Yeah.
No,
That was
I
one of my
didn't.
favorite scenes too, Roger, to your question earlier about seeing something happen and just feeling once in a lifetime feeling was seeing the two of them play the piano at night in their house in the third act of the film. That was a real high point. But what's to say about David? He's the best. You know, he's an American icon, one of our great national treasures of an actor and a stupendous human being.
And when was it? When?
David
No.
loves, I don't, if they cast someone who could be living this life and could be very capable at living this life. And he's a very present human being and really seemed to have loved it. I got that impression. I don't know if that's actually true, but he seemed to really jump in and with complete humility and grace and sense of humor. And Roger, I'm the worst person to ask that question because I like literally love him. And I'd have to like create boundaries between me and him because I just wanted to talk about his old movies. And that's like not the most charming thing on the planet Earth when people do that.
Well, I'm a big fan too.
Oh my God. He's
yeah,
always so good. Like, and oh, I love him.
You know, I just saw Silkwood the other night, which you can't really find anywhere anymore. And it was part of the Museum of Modern Art doing a Mike Nichols retrospective. And I forgot that David's in it as one of the workers at the factory. And it's a small little role and there's other workers and you can't take your eyes off of him. He's just like fills every moment with so much. And you can just see the line from that as a young man with, you know, long dark hair, you know, brown hair to Nomadland was, and everything in between. It was really breathtaking.
Mollye, you guys were talking earlier about 6 months. You were all going through all these different regions. How did weather affect all of this?
Can I, Mollye, before you answer?
Yeah.
I have a memory that other than California and Nevada, we got enough weather, and I was like, am I blocking out all the bad weather?
Yeah, we had really, really great weather. But
well, there was snow.
There might have been, well, yeah, exactly. Like, so Empire wasn't originally supposed to be with snow. It's supposed to be like a dusty feel, you know, and that's how it looked when Josh and Chloe were scouting it. And then suddenly we found out that it was like, you know, covered in snow, and there was this disappointment of like, or this like, oh God, are we gonna have to reschedule, like reshoot, come back later? Right. And then very much the way that Chloe and Josh are able to just pivot and make it part of the story. They're like, you know what, this is actually better. It's like frozen over because this is a place that has like been stocked in time, you know, so it actually made a lot of sense. So, and all kinds of weather, you know, that we sort of embrace it, like the beautiful shot of Fran on the cliffs. You know, it wasn't written that it was supposed to be this hurricane or whatever it was, tropical storm, but that's a circumstance where another one where you just like embrace what the weather is, what the circumstances are, and use that as a kind of as a creative choice.
And
Chloe has good weather luck.
Yeah.
Chloe says her favorite thing about making movies is her luck about the weather.
Peter, so you commissioned the film and you set out and then you choose Chloe. Did the film exceed what you hope it would be?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, beyond 1,000,000 miles, and there's no way to count the distance from what we hoped and thought it might be to what it became. It's exceeded all our expectations, but most especially, I think, just because we never, you know, a movie like this, I think it could often be sort of not relegated to, but live in the provenance of, like, you know, of an art house sort of film, and that where only people who go to seek out a smaller little movie like this would find it, and which is great, and you know, I love making movies like that, but to see the way, because of what the circumstances that conspired with the pandemic and movie theaters closing and everything, you know, the fact that the movie was streaming and became readily available to many, many more people has been, I think, for both Francis and I, and maybe and the other producers, has been the most exciting part, is how many more people have seen the film than probably would have, and how the scope of this Nomad story and Jessica's story, and now all of us and the story we all told together, really found its way into the hearts and minds of just so vastly more people than would have probably had the experience otherwise, and that's been really gratifying.
And then what would you like people to get at that watch the film? What would you like them to get out of it?
That it's okay to make huge choices in your life that are scary.
Mollye?
That life may not go about the way you planned, but you can make your own way out of that, and maybe find a better way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the character of Fern. I have to say, you know, I've seen it. To your point, Peter, that you need to see the film again. I think I've seen this, a film I've seen the most this past year. I've seen it about 5 times. I saw it last night again. And her spirit of perseverance, of, you know, whatever is thrown at you, just, you know, keep going, evolving. And there is, I mean, at least I interpret that she achieves a sense of freedom that to me is very enviable. And something to admire. That you know,
Roger, your love of the film is really inspiring. I just want to say it really comes across, and it reminds me just about your film festival. Like just the spirit of love towards cinema is very inspiring.
oh,
This is the
well,
last Q&A that we're doing as a group, and it's emotional doing it with you because we can feel your love. It's really nice.
well,
I don't have a question attached to that, Roger. Just an appreciation for
well, and you're very kind. And no, it's a
no, because you want people to have their own. You know that when you make a movie, you hand it over to people, then it's theirs, and it's not yours anymore. You know, and that's a great gift, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, well, it's a road movie for our times, and it definitely it speaks to all of us. It's a very powerful, yeah. Well, on that note, gents and lady, thank you so much for being here, and I'm so honored to have been the last Q&A you guys did. And I know there's going to be plenty of more love coming your way. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks, Roger.
Absolutely. Thank you.